then possibly if you, uh, not strangers, but maybe people curious to learn what is happening here. As you know what we are all about, to launch a book that I published, got published about 2 months ago. I haven't much to say, but I think I need to say a few things to introduce the book, which is, uh, I don't know when I started writing these stories. Initially I wrote in Bengali, got published, lost most of my publications, thought no one would take any interest in them. But the English stories kind of didn't go away. They were there. And at one point I thought, oh, instead of letting them get lost, let me have some opinion on them. So I sent to people, and you have the result in front of you. Whether they bore you, whether they please you, you will be deciding that when you have the opportunity of reading them. Only one thing to tell about the stories, which is that what happens in most stories is that they engage you kind of emotionally. And if there is anything lacking in the stories that you find in the book is very little of emotional engagement. One of my criticisms of stories in short stories in Bangladesh, I shouldn't dare to do that, but again I have the courage to saying that most stories kind of engage you, try to engage you emotionally. But the stories here have very little food for the emotion. They may make you a little thoughtful, okay, ask a few questions about yourself, about the nature of life, etc. And as you could hear from the speakers here, they emphasized on that aspect of it. But I can't claim that I had all those thoughts when I wrote the stories. And they came to me. One actually kind of forced me to write it, and it had happened with me before. Okay, I didn't want to write it, but the story kind of possessed me. And though I was trying to, I shouldn't say run away, but I was trying to not delay, write, rewrite, throw it away, but it kind of came back. And that is about the first story, Ticket and Passport, and I wanted the book to be named. But the people to whom I sent the book for reviewing, Professor Syed Manzul Islam, he suggested that, well, instead of having the title, it would be a good idea to call it Strange Coincidence. And the other, formidable, illustrious professor behind it is Professor Kaiser Haq. Well, he said, yes, that is the title, and we overrule, your title will not be accepted, we'll be choosing Professor Manzul Islam's title. So that is how the book is there. And why writing in English, I've explained there. It's not that I write in English. I wrote in Bengali. And if the stories are not lost, maybe I didn't give much attention to them. There could have been another anthology in Bengali as well. But, Sarwar Murshid pointed to my age. I wish I had begun it earlier. Though it's quite late, I thought, well, instead of letting them get lost, let me burden my readers with the burden of the stories, and they will decide whether they will bear the burden or not. So they are there, coming from different kinds of experiences. Some kind of experimentation that I love to do, I am always been fond of doing. And that is where is the misery. I dreamt of being two things in my life. One I cannot share with you. And the other thing is that I really wanted to be a writer, but could never come to it. My job, my profession, okay, doing this, doing that, and I have done a lot of administration. Of course, never was chosen to head a university, but I went to a particular post for a number of occasions, and these took up so much of my time, and of course, my laziness. These would not allow me to write the stories that came to my head. They were there. Okay, I played with them in my head for some time, was excited about them. But then what happened is they gradually slipped out my, okay, sometimes my consideration, sometimes I even forgot them totally. So one purpose of having this launching was not really to introduce the book, but to sort of send a message to you, which is that it's time that you colleagues to do it. We have been using English for a long time, and why can't we be creative in that language as well? So it was a humble attempt to kind of inspire you to take up this, and I'm sure wonderful, okay, Sarah Moshe used another analogy here, okay, golden apples on silver plate. So you will be creating, I'm sure if you come forward, will be really come up with stories that different kinds of write-ups that certainly will demand or will get international recognition. International recognition, I mean, you know, in Bangladesh, everything is international. Okay, there are so many private universities that are international. Even in the by lane of oxygen, you come across Cambridge and Oxford International Schools. So it's a kind of craze. No, not that kind of internationalism. Okay, Rabindranath is an international figure, but then the next line says, kind of whispers, how many people read Rabindranath abroad? Okay, so that kind of problem is there. So as if we live in a kind of backwater all the time, but I'm sure we do not live in backwater, and you will not be living in backwater even if I lived. And if you take up the challenge, if you exercise your mind, if you, be abreast to the ideas. That is what I keep on telling in my classes, that you see, if you really want to make yourself, okay, a person who you yourself would respect, you need to know the ideas. It's not that I urge you or I expect you to go and believe those ideas, but knowing the ideas is very important. And of course, I have my limitation, but that is one thing I've always tried to do, which is, okay, try to know the new ideas. Even at one stage, I started reading physics in order to understand, okay, the great theories in physics, because I realized that there were things in that domain that we needed to be familiar with. I don't know whether it would be proper to give this example. For example, you know Professor Jamal Nazrul Islam. He was an illustrious professor. He wrote books. Even today, you will come across in newspapers lamenting his death. But there is no formidable discussion on the ideas that are there in the books. So, if the emphasis is, if the emphasis should go to the ideas, not to the person, because the ideas continue. And these ideas open your horizon, the horizon of your mind, and liberate you from the smallness, the littleness in which sometimes we allow ourselves to be locked in. So that's it, the book is there. And I'm very thankful to you all, to Siful Aspia, Rifat, who thought that we should have a book launching. Then Professor Borua, Professor Saror Murshid. Then we have Dr. Shamat, who has joined this university recently. And then Abdul Rahim. Okay, and you all who are here, I am really grateful to you for taking the trouble of coming down and waiting here to listen to the wonderful speeches made by the speakers. And I hope when you read the stories, okay, you will find support for what has been said here. I wish I were not here to listen to all the beautiful things that have been said about me on the story, but the stories are there. I would urge you to read the stories and try to write yourself as well.
Any question?
Does anyone have
questions, if you have any questions, put out.